I don't wanna be the boy that runs in the back. I don't wanna be the kid that falls in the dark. All I really want to be is the guy that gets that girl.
Welcome to the AJ Steele Show. We discuss politics, sex, money, and everything in between. And now, here's your host, an immigrant, a self-made millionaire, an American, AJ Steele.
Everything I say and do, I'm just not good enough for you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the AJ Steele Show. I'm glad to have you with us, and we have a lot to talk about today. America is a mess. Our nation is as divided as it's ever been. But the world is becoming more divided, and most of the world doesn't like us. It doesn't like America. It never did. They used to respect us. They used to fear us. But now they just laugh at us and mock us and just wait for us to fall off the cliff that every great empire in history has fallen off of. And yet it's very frightening to see all of this happening so quickly. I never believed that in my lifetime, in my children's lifetimes, I never believed that the great United States of America would be reduced to a second-rate nation, or maybe even a third-world country. But that's where we're headed, especially in light of what happened in Afghanistan in the past few days. Afghanistan is known as the graveyard of empires. Alexander the Great started there and basically failed. Then came the British, and they failed. Then the Soviet Union tried, and they failed. Fighting these crazy Muslims, these mujahideen as they were called, actually led to their financial and ultimate overall collapse. And then there's America. We rushed in there after 9/11 for the right reasons. These Afghanis gave comfort and material aid to Al-Qaeda and to Osama bin Laden. We rushed in there to kill him, and we lost him. He left the caves and moved to Pakistan, we later found out. But instead of leaving, we stayed there for over 20 years, fighting an endless war against a people who hate us, a tribal nation that was never united. It's a country that's full of different tribes, and they all hate each other. But they're all united with one hatred, and that's hatred of America and the West. So we go in there. We don't kill Osama bin Laden. We kill a bunch of Taliban, which is fine. We fought Al-Qaeda. We put them on the run. And then we stayed and stayed and stayed and tried to nation build, try to make these people, these backwards, tribal Muslim people, in our own image. It started with George W. Bush. Then it went on to Barack Obama. Donald Trump wanted to pull out of there, but our military didn't want him to do so. But he pushed, and he made a plan to get out of there. A plan that might have worked. Who knows? Things never work in that part of the world. But at least he tried. The military-industrial complex never wanted him to leave. They wanted to stay there forever. All the contracts they got to build schools and to support the army of Afghanistan and to build roads and this and that. What do you think that was all about? It wasn't because we care about Afghanistan. It wasn't because of some kind of an altruism that America has. It was all about making money for the military-industrial complex. The same people who want endless wars all over the world. The same people who couldn't care less about the loss of American lives. All they care about is money. Think Dick Cheney. Think Liz Cheney. Think about all the fat cat Republicans up there in Congress and the House. Think of all the fat cat Democrats and their presidents. Disgusting. They sold out America. They sold out our soldiers' lives and limbs and souls just so they can make more money. For 20 plus years, we stayed in a God-forsaken country and nothing got done except for billions, or actually forget billions, trillions of dollars that were stolen from the American taxpayer and given to all these corporations and their crooked warlord Afghani buddies. So no, we achieved nothing. Americans bled. Americans got maimed. American soldiers got psychological scars forever. And American soldiers lost their lives. That's what we got for Afghanistan. And you think that's the end of the money that we're going to give them? Don't bet on it. Don't forget, there's anywhere from 10,000 to 40,000 American citizens stuck there in Afghanistan, trapped and completely unable to reach the Kabul airport. What do you think those people are, if not hostages of the Taliban? And what happens when they start executing them or torturing them, cutting their heads off, throwing them in fire pits, drowning them? What do you think Joe Biden and all his buddies here in the Democratic Party are going to do to prevent these horrible optics from being seen by the entire world? You remember what Obama did with Iran? Remember when he sent them millions and millions of dollars in pallets, cash pallets in the middle of the night? Well, I suspect that the Taliban is going to make out with a lot more than a few $1,000,000. Think billions. We left them all our weapons. We left them all our infrastructure. And now we're going to send them billions of dollars just to keep from executing all the American citizens that Joe Biden left behind. One way or another, the American taxpayer will be on the hook. American lives will be lost. American money will be spent yet again, while Joe Biden and the Democratic Party and the deep state and the military-industrial complex just wring their hands from this whole mess. Oh, they won't lose their jobs. They'll probably all get raises. And all these worthless woke generals will retire with a full retirement. And then they'll get a fat job on CNN or MSNBC. They'll pontificate for years and years on what we should do in different foreign situations. These paper generals who never won a war in their whole lives, in their beautiful, well-pressed uniforms, and the millions of shiny, fake medals on their chests, like those clown dictators from the third world. Yes, that's where America is at. That's our generals. Now, I'm not blaming the rank-and-file soldiers and officers and commanders. Those brave soldiers are some of the finest men and women we have in America. But as usual, they've been hung out and left to dry. They weren't the ones making the decisions. If it was up to them, we would have won this war in 10 weeks. These ragtag Taliban people would have been completely dead and forgotten by now. But we didn't let them win, did we? We didn't give them the support they needed, and we didn't give them the clarity of mission. And that's why Afghanistan is the mess that it is today. Just like everything that Obama and Bush and Clinton ever touched. A mess. And now we can add Joe Biden to that list. Now people tell me, oh, he's demented. He doesn't know what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. Yes, he is demented. Yes, he is a fool. But he knew what he was doing when he ran for president. He knew that he would be a puppet that would be controlled by the deep state. And he played along with it. For personal riches, for fame, for arrogance, or maybe just for vanity. I don't know. No, having dementia does not absolve him from all of his crimes and from all the horrible things he's done to American citizens. That's just an excuse, which I'm not willing to accept, and Americans shouldn't accept it either. The other day I wrote a tweet that got a lot of responses. It went like this. I can think of only 4 reasons why Team Biden is messing up so royally. A, they hate America. B, they're controlled by a foreign entity. C, they're comprised of college professor types who learned everything from books and have zero real-world experience. And D, all of the above. There's no other options, ladies and gentlemen. Either they are compromised, they hate America, or they are completely incompetent. Unfortunately, the end result for America and for the world is always the same. So where does this leave the Afghanis? Everybody's whining about women's rights and gay rights and family rights over there and freedom of speech. Like we have freedom of speech in America anymore, right? Look, Afghanistan is a mess, and it's always been a mess, and it always will be a mess. And it's obvious that the Taliban, despite what they tell us that they'll do, we know that they're going to ransack the whole nation, steal all the money, kill every opponent they have, shoot women for not wearing the full face covering, hurt anybody that helped America, destroy anybody who has a brain, any artist, any musician, anyone who believes in freedom. And we know they're going to start stoning women if they think that they act in an impure way, or just for the heck of it, because that's what murderous thugs do. And that's what the Taliban is. A bunch of murderers and cutthroats who join together to live in some kind of a semblance of a 12th century Islamic caliphate. But unfortunately, all of Afghanistan is a 12th century nation. It's a country full of competing tribes who hate each other. It's never been a united nation. Never. There's never been a real country of Afghanistan that worked together. There's millions of tribes. Many of them are fundamentalists. And many of them are killers, just the same as the Taliban. It's just that the Taliban right now is the most powerful tribe or group. The rest of the Afghanis, most of them are just as violent and just as backwards and just as rigid in their thinking and way of life. So no, it's not this horrible Taliban is taking over the country. The whole country is a horrible country. And most of the people that live there, they practice a very violent form of Islam. I've actually met some Arabs who told me, don't ever mess with the Afghanis. They're crazier than us. Naturally, there's some decent people who live in Afghanistan too, but not too many. And realistically, it's not our job to make sure that they are safe. Our job is to take care of our own citizens. Our job is to bring our soldiers home safe. Our job is to protect America, and that's the only thing that should be on our minds. It doesn't mean I don't have a heart. It doesn't mean I don't feel sad for the innocents, the thousands of innocents that are going to be dying in the streets of Afghanistan. But it's up to them to take their country back from these cutthroats. And like I said, unfortunately, the opposition is the same kind of cutthroats that the Taliban are. If the other side won, they would kill and massacre the Taliban the same way the Taliban is going to kill and massacre them now. There's nothing good in that nation of Afghanistan, and we should get out of there and never look back. But we should have left with honor. We should have left with self-respect. We shouldn't be seen as a weak force, a spent nation, ideologically, financially, and militarily. And that's the tragedy here. Our complete capitulation, just the humiliation of the American troops and our nation, are going to reverberate through the world for many years to come, and nothing good will come out of it. Ladies and gentlemen, I have to take a quick break, but before we go, I'd like to remind you that we really depend on you, our listeners. Last week, YouTube banned one of our episodes. The episode was about my grandma's Holocaust story and how she was saved by American GIs. I guess some of the good people out there in YouTube felt that this story was full of misinformation. I guess even the Holocaust is now considered to be a right-wing conspiracy that violates the sensibilities of the new Nazis in big tech. So because of that, we need your support more than ever. And we're not asking for any money to subscribe to our program, just a little bit of your time. And it's very important that you spread the word about us and remind all your friends and all the people you know to do the same. Our podcast is available on all the major podcast providers, on iTunes, which is Apple, on Spotify and Stitcher and Amazon and iHeartRadio. So please subscribe and spread the word. Now I'm going to have to take a short break, and when we get back, I'm going to talk about all the people that are saying, yeah, let's open our doors, let's open our borders, let's let all these Afghanis in, let's help them out. I'm going to tell you what I think about all that nonsense and why it's another grave danger, another parasite that's going to be eating from the carcass of our once wonderful nation. This is AJ Steele, and we will be right back.
You're listening to the AJ Steele Show, where no topic is off limits, no discussion too harsh, no truth more true. The AJ Steele Show, we tell it like it is.
All I really want to be is a guy that gets the girl. All I really want to be.
Welcome back to the AJ Steele Show. So we just finished talking about what a debacle The whole Afghanistan pullout was what a complete humiliation to the American troops and to our nation, and how America's defeat established a dangerous precedent for all of our friends and our enemies alike. But all I hear from the rhinos and the left-wing politicians here in America is how we're supposed to help the Afghani people. How are we supposed to help them? We're supposed to bring them here and take care of them. The guy who started this whole mess in the first place, George W. Bush, is running his mouth how we should bring all these Afghans here to America to live with us. Of course, Jeb Bush will join in next, and his little wife Paloma. They'll talk about how big of a heart conservatives have to have. Mitt Romney, the other rhino, opened his mouth saying that we should bring him in. And naturally, Gavin Newsom in San Francisco is welcoming all these Afghans to California. And the idiot Governor Kemp of Georgia, he's welcoming Afghans to Georgia because we need more problems with the voting over there, right? We need more Democrat voters in Georgia. I guess it doesn't matter to him. He's a rhino. And naturally, Catholic charities and all the U.S. bishops are running their mouths nonstop. Well, let's bring more of these Afghanis. They deserve it. I guess these good religious folks aren't making enough money on the illegal aliens. They need a new windfall, a new cash cow, don't they? I guess we don't have enough poor people right here in America that need help, right? Why not help the rest of the world? I mean, we don't have enough poor whites and poor American Hispanics and poor American blacks. Nah, who cares about them? Let's help the rest of the world. And who's going to pay for it? My taxes and your taxes. So I'm thinking, if all of these people, if George Bush and Mitt Romney and all of these Democrats, Gavin Newsom, if they love all these wonderful people so much, why not move them into their own neighborhoods? Why not move all these Muslim Afghanis into the Catholic churches and the liberal synagogues that love them so much? Heck, why couldn't Jeb Bush and his good wife Paloma adopt a couple of Afghanistani kids and move them into their own homes? I don't want them in my neighborhood. Let these bleeding heart hypocrites take them. Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, who hopefully will soon be the ex-governor of California, just sold his home, which is a couple of miles away from my neighborhood, for $6 million. He should have filled it up with Afghani kids. Why not? You know why not? Because they would never do it. They would never pay for it, and they would never want any of those people living next to them. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them for not wanting these Muslim cutthroats living next to them. But how dare they expect the rest of America to take them in? Well, I say no. Absolutely not. And I'll tell you why. Let's talk about who these Afghanis are. What kind of people they are. What kind of job skills they have. What kind of religion they have. What kind of violent upbringing they've always had. What kind of education or lack of they have. And how about the fact that many of them have never even seen running water or toilets or electricity? These people actually came from caves. These are backwards people. They're uneducated. They are extremely violent. They are extremely devoted to Islam and to a violent version of it. And realistically, they don't like us. Most of them don't like us. Now, don't send me letters and emails and texts about, oh, there's some good ones. Of course there's some good Afghanis. But in general, Afghanistan is a violent country, and the Afghani people are a very rough people. They had to be. All their lives they fought. They were born and bred to fight. They've been fighting since 1,000 years ago. They've been fighting forever. They've been fighting each other. They've been fighting other people. Even if we never landed in Afghanistan, they'd be killing each other day in and day out. It's their culture. And you want to bring them to America? I mean, we don't have enough violence here? People always say, oh, they supported us. These guys were our friends. Well, they weren't our friends. They were just on the other side of the Taliban. They are just as violent, just as vile, just as vindictive, and just as backward as the Taliban. Except for we were against the Taliban, so they joined us. And we paid them very well for that. Very few of these people like us. They are very treacherous, and they used us just like we used them. That's how the world works. So pardon me if I don't want these people living next to me. Pardon me if I don't want my tax money going to educate these kids and to pay welfare for these people, because most of them don't have any job skills whatsoever. They will become wards of the state forever. Them, their kids, the entire generation. Now, the fact that these people are extreme devout Muslims brings up a host of other issues as well. Many of these folks are completely intolerant of other religions. They hate Christianity. They hate the West. Most of these people still blame us for the Crusades, not to mention the fact that they're anti-Semitic to the bone. They hate Jews and they hate Christians. Why do we need more strife in our society? Why would they bring them in? Why would the Catholic Church? Why would Jewish family services push for them to come here when they know that these people are anti-Christian and anti-Semitic to their core? And we haven't even touched on the pedophilia. Yes, pedophilia. Child brides as young as 5. Young boys who are used up as sex slaves by these men, by these sickos from Afghanistan. And no, it's not something that is considered a crime. It's a common thing. Many grown men, especially powerful grown men in Afghanistan, have a tradition of taking a little boy as their sex slave. It's not considered bad. It's not considered evil. It's not even considered homosexuality. It's their culture. It's what they do. And they bring that attitude here. Most of these men married girls as young as 5, but average, I would say, about 10 or 11. They marry them. They have sex with them. They have kids with them. It's their tradition. It's not considered evil. Do you get it? They don't even hide it. It's their culture. It's a sick culture. Not to mention that rape is very accepted. And I'm not talking about here and there. I'm talking about gang rapes. The Afghani people have a very weird tradition of rough, violent sexuality. And a lot of it comes from the whole attitude that a man is much, much, much more powerful and more important than any kind of woman. And children and women are nothing but dogs, or slaves, I should say. It's just how it is. And I don't want those people in our country. I don't want that attitude in our country. Every place in the world that took in Afghani refugees has a huge rape problem and child marriage problem and other problems, violence, criminality, social decay. Don't we have enough of that here in America already? Do we need to import more of it? So you're going to tell me, well, that's their culture. That's their culture. And I agree. I don't care what they do in their own country. It's their culture, and it's their right to behave the way they want to behave. It's their problem. But don't bring that problem here. Most of these Afghani refugees are completely incompatible with Western values. They're completely incompatible with the way we live, with our system of governance, and with our freedom. And no amount of education or talking or training them is going to change any of that. A leopard never changes its spots. These people have a very strong culture that's worked for them for thousands of years. Heck, they're able to kick out all the empires and destroy them, so something is working. We may not like it, we may not want to live that way, but it works for them. So leave them all there to deal with their own nation. Let them build their own nation. Let them live their lives the way they like it, and leave us out of it. Look, we were in Afghanistan for over 20 years. We spent trillions of dollars training their military, taking all their kids to school, teaching them about freedom and equal rights and LGBT rights. And what did they learn? Nothing. Because they don't like our way of life. They look down at us. They think that we are corrupt. And maybe they're right. But all this money and time that we spent over there amounted to nothing. $1 trillion. And their army ran away the minute America left. That's who these people are. You can't help those who don't want to help themselves. They're just not mature enough as a society and as a people to enter the 21st century. And I'm not sure they want to. So let them be. I can't think of one upside to bringing hundreds of thousands of Afghanis here to America. There's nothing good that will come out of it. Now, a lot of the brave soldiers that worked with some Afghans will tell me, well, what about this brave translator, or this brave guy that helped us out, or this guy was our true friend? Well, those guys we should bring over. Absolutely. If somebody was loyal to America, if somebody took care of Americans, if somebody saved Americans in a battle, If a translator or two are decent people, absolutely bring them over, because they're mature enough to work with us. But hundreds of thousands of unvetted people? Not to mention how many Taliban terrorists and even Al-Qaeda are going to slip through with them. Who knows? Nobody knows who these people are. No, it's a bad idea. It's a bad idea, and knowing how Joe Biden and Obama and all of his buddies and all the handlers there operate, they're absolutely going to implement it. So get ready for hundreds of thousands of new welfare cases in America. Hundreds of thousands of new Democrat voters. Hundreds of thousands of potentially violent individuals bringing Islam and their backwardness to our nation, to our states, to our cities, to our neighborhoods. Okay, I'm being told that I have to take a short break, but let me remind you that I have a lot more to say, and we will be right back on the AJ Steele Show.
All I really want to be is the guy that gets the girl.
The AJ Steele Show. Think of your loudmouth best friend, hated by all the wives, because he tells it just like it is.
Finally see your love belongs to me.
Welcome back to the AJ Steele Show. Let me tell you how I think and what I feel about war. I hate war. I think nations should try to avoid war at all costs. I think you only fight a war when you're attacked or if you know that you're going to be attacked. But no war for money or oil. No wars for pride. None of that. I don't like any of that. No wars for the military-industrial complex. You should just fight a war that defends your nation from potential adversaries or from people that already attacked you. But let me tell you one thing about war. If you go to war, you should kill as many of your enemy soldiers as you can. You should kill all of their leaders. You should kill all their military leaders, their civilian leaders. You should kill some of the population if they support the war effort, because that's the only way to win a war. You can't have mercy. You can't be a great humanitarian when you go to war. When we fought the Nazis, we firebombed Dresden. When we fought the Nazis, we firebombed Berlin. We killed civilians, yes. Was that our intention? I don't know, but the civilians supported Hitler. When we fought Japan, we nuked them. The first nuke didn't even work. They didn't give up. The Hiroshima nuclear bomb didn't stop the Japanese from fighting us, despite the fact that they lost tens of thousands of people and the town was burned to a crisp. So we had to unleash another fire of hell, a second nuke on Nagasaki. And then Japan surrendered, unconditionally. The Russians didn't stop in World War II in their battle against the Nazis. They went straight to Berlin, and they didn't stop until they killed each and every last of the pockets of resistance from the Germans, including the Hitlerjugend, the Hitler Youth. They killed them too, because when you fight a war, you fight to win. When the ancient Romans sacked Judea and destroyed the Jewish temple, they burned Jerusalem down. They killed everyone they could get their hands off. And the rest of the Jews, they enslaved. Because when you fight a war, whether right or wrong, you fight to win. Look, you don't go to battle, you don't go to war, unless if you're willing to do whatever it takes to win that battle, kill your enemy, and get back home safe. No mercy, no lefty rules of engagement. I'm sick and tired of all that crap. You can't shoot them if they don't have a weapon. You can't attack them because they're hiding in civilian homes. No. If they're hiding in civilian homes, most likely those civilians support them. And if they don't support them, they should vote them out or rout them out. It's not our job to die so other countries' civilians will live. Especially civilians who are complicit and hate our guts. Listen, no moral human being would ever aim their fire at civilians on purpose. But sometimes civilians become collateral damage. You just can't fight a war with one or even two hands tied behind your back. And that's what America has been doing ever since Vietnam, because of our media and the idiot lefties who are protected by all these soldiers that they hate so much. The lefties whose freedom is defended by the blood of those heroes, whom they call murderers. You kill them without mercy. You kill the enemy without mercy. And you do it repeatedly. You try to spare civilians if you can, but if you can't, you do what you have to do. You do it over and over again until you get unconditional surrender. And then you leave. You take your spoils of war, and you don't do nation building. You don't try to do good and educate all those people whose families you just killed, because they all hate you. You leave, you go back home, and you take care of your own people. And if you're incapable of doing that, fighting a war till the end, killing your enemies until they submit completely and give up all their weapons and show no more desire to fight you and wave the white flag, then you don't go to war. You don't go to war. You don't fight a battle that you don't intend to win. Now, before all my libertarian listeners and all my lefty listeners and the very right-wing listeners tell me, oh, you're such a warmonger, AJ. Oh, you're such a tough guy. I'm going to tell you one thing. I'm not a tough guy at all. I don't like war. I don't think we should have been in Afghanistan for 20 years. I think we should have killed Osama bin Laden and gotten the heck out of there. We stayed there way too long because the military-industrial complex just made money from war. These people control our Congress, they control our presidents, they control the industry, they control the world, and they profit from war. And that's why we were there for 20 years. But that's besides the point. That's an argument for a different show. To me, one American soldier's life is worth the lives of 10,000 Afghani civilians, and 100,000 Taliban, and 1 million ISIS, or Al-Qaeda, or Iraqis. One American life is worth more than all of theirs. And that's why I absolutely hate war. But if we go to war, we have to fight to win. We can't have this debacle that we just saw with our very own eyes. It dwarfs Saigon. This is not Vietnam. There's tens of thousands of American citizens stranded in that godforsaken country of Afghanistan. Our soldiers were humiliated. Thousands of Americans gave their lives for this war. A war that we didn't let them win, and they could have won. A war that lasted 20 years instead of 10 weeks. A war that shouldn't have happened the way it did. And now we're left with America looking humiliated. Our brave soldiers humiliated. Our national pride gone. Our assets, the money that we spent there, the blood that we shed for that horrible country, for that tribal Muslim hellhole. But you know what? This is a lot more than just bad optics. This is not just, oh, America folded its tail behind its legs and ran away. It's much worse than that. Our enemies like Iran and North Korea, they all watched this. And they were gleeful. They were smiling to themselves. Look at those dumb Americans. And they were learning lessons too. And while they were doing that, our friends like Taiwan and Israel and Japan and Eastern Europe, you know what they did? They were shuddering. Because the fall of America means the fall of the free world. You know, there's only one winner here, and everybody knows who that is. And that winner is China. It's not the Taliban. The Taliban are a bunch of cutthroats, backwards people. Let them have their country. We don't want it. But it's China that seems to be rising, while we seem to be falling down. It's almost like a sad passing of the guard. And believe me, this is not a very good omen. This is not a very good sign. This doesn't really point to a great future for ourselves or for our children and even our grandchildren. It's like the lights of this great nation, this country that I love with all my heart, are starting to dim. They're starting to flicker like a candle in the wind. And that breaks my heart. And it should break yours. Yes, it's been a really rough week for all of us here. All those images I saw out there in Afghanistan just broke my heart. Broke every proud American's heart. We hate to see 20 years go down a drain in such an ugly and cowardly and humiliating way. But ladies and gentlemen, it didn't have to end that way. We could have left Afghanistan in an organized and orderly fashion. This should have been a proud moment for America, an organized withdrawal with dignity and honor and strength and without humiliation. And I lay the blame at Joe Biden's feet. Joe Biden, his handlers, the deep state, our media, the cowardly TV generals, the fakes who never won a war in their whole lives, the fakes who only worry about being woke and about LGBT rights and about BLM and pregnant women's uniforms, bootlicking deep state cowardly generals who spend their time denigrating patriots instead of spending their time protecting the nation that made them very rich and very powerful and extremely successful. They worry about everything and everyone, except America and Americans. Now, I'm not talking about the rank and file, not the field generals that fight, not the captains, not the soldiers, not the majors that fought in the war, because they'll be our heroes for eternity, and their sacrifice was not in vain. This is the AJ Steele Show. Thank you for listening.
All I really want to be is a guy that gets a girl. All I really want to be. All I really want to be is a guy that gets a girl.
The AJ Steele Show, copyrighted 2020.